Hi, I'm Zach, and welcome to Close Listening with silent co-host Ludwig von B. Are you the kind of person who sometimes strongly dislikes some things? Yeah, I think that applies to most people. But are you also the kind of person who doesn't, who gets bothered by the fact that you strongly dislike things? I'm one of those people, so I often find when a movie is considered widely bad, I find a way to like it. The Room is my favorite movie. I kind of liked the 2019 Cats movie, though I did think it was kind of too long and meandering, but I loved the weird way the characters looked. Anyway, speaking about cats, the subject of today's video is Animals. Animals is an album by Pink Floyd. Animals is why Pink Floyd are associated with that flying pig image. And I have something embarrassing to admit. For years I have called Pink Floyd Stink Floyd, which is my lazy way of saying I really don't like them. So when I started in college, I was just starting to get into a few singer-songwriters. I'd become obsessed with Buddy Holly and Neil Diamond the year before. That year I got really into Cat Stevens and Tom Petty and Phil Oakes, and shortly thereafter I had Gordon Lightfoot and Buffy St. Marie and John Denver and Paul Simon and James Taylor phases. So I was into the idea of getting records at this point, into the idea of, listening to all the old great bands, and I realized I hadn't ever really listened to Pink Floyd, and I felt like they were an important one for me to listen to. And then I started listening to them, and I was confused, because my reaction was, wait, when do the songs start? This all just sounds like one slow, spacey introduction. There's not a song in there that I can just, love the hook the way I did with Sweet Caroline, dun dun dun. No, Pink Floyd does not make songs like Sweet Caroline. And while I was really disappointed, for instance, that the song Great Gig in the Sky, where I loved the title, didn't have any lyrics, so I couldn't just play a cover of it, maybe that's not the point of all music. Some songwriters write popular stuff for us to sing along to, but others are offering more of an artsy experience. I like looking at modern art. I like modern artsy movies. Maybe I should give prog rock more of a chance. Anyway, I was in an email exchange with a friend from Montreal, a poet and a ukulele player named Kevin, and Kevin said, you should really listen to this album called Animals. I love Animals, I love this cover art, and the other thing is I love Roger Waters. I love that he's, one of the artists from the 60s who still has solid politics, and he's very outspoken about them. So, Roger, I really want to love your music. We're going to see how it goes. I'm going to do my reaction to Pink Floyd's Animals. Let's go. So I just listened to the first song on Animals, and it's too short a song to be a favorite song, but it's a pretty good one, and it's very much in my style. So it's just all guitar, it's very clear vocals, and when you look at the lyrics, which luckily come printed in this insert, it just looks like a little poem. It's so short I could read it to you now. I guess that's not in the spirit of this. Go listen to the song. But I love the contrast in the last two lines. Wondering which of the buggers to blame and watching for pigs on the wing. And it's talking about two people who aren't caring for others. Okay, I'm basically giving away all the words, but I like this contrast. So the two things we can do is look for dreams, or we can look for people to blame. It's a good cynical description of the human condition. Alright, so the next song on the album is called Dogs. And I think I'm getting better at this whole listening to Pink Floyd thing. So I've been listening to it, trying to pay attention to the lyrics, but also engaging my mind in a psychedelic space of my own, doing some painting. If you look at this lyrically, it's called Dogs, and I imagine, it's about this image of dogs as submissive animals. Who was born in a house full of pain, who was trained not to spit in the fan, who was told what to do by the man, who was broken by trained personnel, who was fitted with collar and chain. That's not necessarily the vibe I get from listening to the music. So this song is 17 minutes, 5 seconds long. And what I like about it, more so than what I remember of Dark Side of the Moon, is that the acoustic guitar is the lead instrument and there's lots of intense drumming. So it's not trying to challenge what's natural to listen to. It's a folk rock sound. It just manages to be very long and occasionally bring in different kinds of instrumental parts. And what it sounds like musically is a series of sort of epic rises. It sounds more like a triumphant fight scene, whereas This still feels like it's kind of early in the narrative of whatever the heck this concept album is about. It's talking about these dogs as animals that are being held down, so I don't quite get it. And, you know, I'm both hearing before why I was alienated with Pink Floyd, but I think I'm doing a good job of getting into a good space of listening to this one, and had a fairly good experience with listening to it. So the next track on the album is called Pigs, 3 different ones. So I assume that's a reference to the 3 little pigs, and it's just sort of an awkward way of saying it. It's like, I don't know, if they were to make a joke about someone for whom English was the second language saying, I am now going to tell story of pigs, the 3 different ones. If you look at the lyric, it's playing into the idea of pig as the exploiter, pig, man, ha ha ha, charade you are. It's not particularly clear if there's an actual allegory to the 3 little pigs going on here. It talks about the big man pig, so I don't know, maybe someone with an ego, bus stop rat bag, I don't know, maybe some sort of con artist. And hey, you White House, the pigs is in the state themselves, the politicians. It's not the most clear allegory. So honestly, this song reminds me of 2 things. It reminds me of George Harrison's much shorter, much more tongue-in-cheek song from the Beatles' White Album, Piggies. And it reminds me of the Smiths song, Meat is Murder, because it also uses animal sounds. I think the first one that stood out to me in this was a kind of choking sound, but it didn't literally sound like an animal being slaughtered. It sounded like a human putting on performative sounds. So at that point, I thought it was kind of interesting. This song, like the last one, is long. It's not as long. It's only 11 minutes and 25, but eventually it just turns into a long guitar solo. And, you know, maybe one day I'll have the right conversation with an instrumental-focused musician, but for now I feel like what starts out as maybe an artistic song just becomes a jam session. And, you know, it's not as funny as George Harrison's Pigs, and it's not as glum, but at least relatably political as Meat is Murder. So, you know, it is what it is. It's an interesting art song. Didn't quite capture my attention. So the next song on the record is called Sheep. And I think it's interesting because there are only 5 tracks here in total. So 2 of the album animals they pick are dogs and sheep, and then all that leaves is pigs. So poor chickens don't get a song, poor ducks don't get a song, poor cows don't get a song, poor horses don't get a song. You know, they're leaving out a lot of important farm animals here. Apologies to goats, geese, don't know if anyone else counts. I don't know, do llamas or emus count as mainstream farm animals? Whatever. The point is, symbolically, dogs and sheep are very similar because they're seen as obedient animals. And I guess the subtle nuance they're interested in here is that dogs are tough and heroic and are kind of submissive despite that, whereas sheep are just perceived, to quote Babe, as stupid. And that's kind of the vibe we're going for in this song. At the beginning, there's just instruments and sheep bleating before the vocals come in, and they're really epic when they come in. And even though I'm starting to remember as we get to this track why Pink Floyd isn't really for me, I will say the instrumental arc on this track does really seem to resemble a true story arc with a beginning, a middle, and end, only really getting to sound like an epic chase towards the end. But what's interesting lyrically, what's going on there is, have you heard the news? The dogs are dead. You better stay home. So the sheep's big heroic moment is retreating. And, you know, in a way that makes sense. You still have to have courage to retreat in a dangerous situation. But again, some interesting juxtaposition with images and lyrics. And it's hard to know exactly what Pink Floyd are going on here. You know, is this really a coherent story? Is it just a collection of emotions? You know, it can be great art either way. But there's that ambiguity. So the last track is called Pigs on a Wing 2, and it truly is a sequel to the first track, Pigs on a Wing 1. So it's sort of responding to and taking back some of the things said there. In that first track, the singer and the singer singing to don't care about each other, but Pigs on a Wing 2 opens with, you know that I care what happens to you. Then the singer begins to identify as a dog. I don't know if literally they're dogs. I kind of like that, though probably not. And it says, any fool knows a dog needs a home, a shelter from pigs on the wing. So maybe the friend the person is singing to is not in fact a friend, but the owner. And it's like, you have to choose your master because one master is going to mess with you and another one. Please avoid these supposedly dangerous pigs on a wing out there. Take care. For Ludwig von B, my silent co-host, and I, see you next time. And it says, any fool knows a dog needs a home, a shelter from pigs on the wing. This time they make clear that pigs on a wing is... I got blue paint on my face.